Tatsuya Kitani and Baby Metal. Now, this is an interesting collaboration that's just come up in my feed, and I'm going to be checking it out with you guys today. Because, to be honest, I'm actually really excited to see Baby Metal featuring on a song with another Japanese artist. I know it's not completely unprecedented, but we've had a lot of Baby Metal doing collaborations and featurettes as per their Metal 4th album recently with a lot of Western artists. And, you know, I keep on saying I wanted to hear them doing music with more Japanese artists as well, because there's something, there's a reason why I mostly, well, almost entirely listen to and check out Japanese music. I feel like most of the best stuff is coming from there, and with all of the love that I have for the collaborations that did come through on Metal 4th, I'm excited to see this. I'm excited to see Baby Metal with a Japanese artist. If you're going to do collaborations, that's the kind of collaboration that, personally, I'm going to get really excited about. However, Tatsuya Kitani, I don't really know anything about this artist, so I did a little bit of research. Yes, I decided to be prepped before going into this, because the funny thing is that you can live as many years in Japan as I have and be into Japanese music pretty much your entire life like I have, and still there's so many Japanese artists that you can miss some really big names. We can see here, by the way, just before we go any further, we can see that Tatsuya Kitani has almost 1 million subscribers, which makes me really excited. So I did a little bit of Googling, looked up, I basically ended up on the Wikipedia page, which is a safe place to at least start. You can tell it's probably going to be mostly right. And what really impressed me is just the number of instruments, first of all, that Tatsuya Kitani can play. But it's not just that he's an instrumentalist, but looking through here, he's done a lot of work as a Vocaloid producer, and basically as a songwriter. This seems to be a big thing, is that he seems to be a very talented songwriter, and I've kind of said this, not everyone agrees, but I feel like as songwriting for me is the primary talent that I'm most excited about. When I see people doing stuff like Vocaloid is still writing, that's still constructing notes. It's actually, a lot of the time, Vocaloid writers are almost working as producers. You can do this from the comfort of your own bedroom, but you're using all the sounds. You have the full color palette in front of you, and all you have to do is construct the sounds and the songs together. So Vocaloid producers often tend to actually be extremely good writers, which is why I'm not surprised that so many of them have gone on to write for big name artists. But anyway, as you can see here, got a major debut. I think went solo in 2017. Got a major debut in 2020. So this is a gentleman who's been really working and producing a lot. And so I don't know anything about Tatsuya Kitani's music. I didn't read really. I didn't want to get too much into reading the genre, giving myself too many hints. All I know is that Tatsuya Kitani is clearly someone who's come from a background that I would usually say I'm very excited about. The kind of background from, I think is very promising, and is doing a song with Baby Metal, an artist who I want to do more collaborations with Japanese artists. I mean, to be honest, actually, I want Baby Metal just to start doing some, now they got Momoko on board, I want them just to start doing some Baby Metal songs. It's been so long since we've had Baby Metal doing Baby Metal songs. But if you're going to do collaborations, this is the sort of thing I can get excited about. Anyway, it's more of a feature than the collaboration, so we're going to be hearing mostly Tatsuya Kitani's song and hopefully seeing how Baby Metal factor into that. The song is called Kasuga no Hana, which means a faint flower, according to the official translation. And let's dive into it now and see what we think. I'm excited. I wasn't expecting the double time there. Okay, we've got a high budget looking video as well. Love the clear difference between the voices there. To Ing Price. The production is so crisp and slick on this. Very big, pronounced chorus. it's the chord structure, the way that the chord progression happens. This is very much a Japanese style, kind of almost like the signature chord signature that you get used to thinking of as anime and such like. And Vocaloid. Love the use of the Shinjuku Square there. The duet's beautiful. I love how Sue's voice contrasts against Tetsuya's. I like that little drop beat there. That's the kind of chorus that's going to get stuck in your head. It's already almost over. That's cool. That's very, very cool. Do you know what, actually? This is really weird because the thing that I wasn't even thinking about this until we got right to the end of the song, and just in those last couple of notes, it suddenly hit me. This is Sue from Baby Metal, sounding like Sue from Baby Metal, but appearing perfectly, naturally, and fluidly on a song that in no way is metal. This, and you know, don't get me wrong, they've done other songs like that, but this song, I mean, Tetsuya, sorry, I keep on calling him Tetsuya. It's Tatsuya. My apologies, Tatsuya. I'm sorry, I got a friend who's called Tetsuya, so I'm just kind of like, sorry. But yeah, so Tatsuya, apologies, Tatsuya. So Tatsuya's song here is very much of a style which is much more, I don't want to say familiar to Vocaloids because it makes it sound Vocaloid producers are all the same, but it's kind of got that style, that very active style with that certain kind of chord pattern is very familiar for a lot of these more, again, I don't want to say mainstream, I'm trying to avoid saying anything that sounds too derogatory, but it's a very familiar chord pattern for a lot of J-rock and J-pop sort of songs in the mainstream sphere. And it's one that's particularly nice because it kind of goes around, it doesn't resolve, and it keeps everything sounding tense, and then, you know, finally resolves in the final note, just when you get to the end, and that's when you get the refrain. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So basically, a lot of the structure of the song is very sort of, you know, that quintessential, just really very signature Japanese style of writing for mainstream pop and rock. And again, I mean that in a positive way. I'm trying not to sound like I'm damning it by saying it's mainstream, because mainstream in Japan is not a bad thing. But this is also interesting because this is not a genre or style that you usually hear Sue's voice in. And this is where I have to give massive props to Tatsuya on this, is because a lot of the time, if you have someone working with Baby Metal, I get the feeling that a lot of the time they'll play towards the metal aspect. They'll play towards the aspect of having a song sound like, you know, it's you know, Baby Metal-esque. Whereas this just sounds to me like, you know, Tatsuya has got a song that he wanted to do, and he thought to himself, I want a female vocal in this. I'll get onto that in a moment. And he thought, who do I want on this? And then maybe he went through some agents. Maybe he already knew that he wanted Baby Metal. And just a decision came together. And then Sue's voice was like the choice. And then maybe this was written for her voice. I don't know. But I love the fact that Sue is appearing on a song here that, as much as it is something that is a mainstream sounding Japanese type of song, it's not the sort of song that we would hear her on. So it's a very familiar and comfortable sound. And yet, it's not a sound that Sue appears on. I feel like I'm kind of flogging this point over and over again, but I can't tell you how much that actually really, just with the realization of that, it really hits me. This is a sort of song where I'd more expect to hear sort of YOASOBI on a song like this. You know, hearing sort of Leelas from YOASOBI's voice on this would sound more like what I would expect. I would more expect to hear so many other Japanese singers, but hearing Sue from Baby Metal on this is seriously cool because, again, I want to hear Baby Metal taken outside of their genre, and not just outside of, to different types of metal, but outside of metal altogether, because, we already know they can do metal. Hearing their voices applied to other things is so cool. And so for me, I really enjoyed that aspect. And it was worked so well that, again, I didn't even click with it until we got right to the end. Yeah, of course, this song has some rocking aspects. It's got the guitars in there. It's got a little bit of that sort of dark, edgy feel to it. A lot of that, I think, is conveyed from the video as well. But the song itself is pretty mainstream, chart-topping pop rock. And again, when I say mainstream, I say this just in case you're new to this channel. I say this as someone who maintains that Japanese mainstream music, for the best part, this is what separate. I mean, there's so many things that separate Japanese music from the rest of the world, but one of the biggest signs of how good Japanese music is that the mainstream music, a lot of the time, is really good. I'm a big lover of like the niches, the live house, or the genre blurring stuff like that, but I can say with my hands up high that a lot of the mainstream stuff in Japan as well, we've got some great music happening in Japan. And I say mainstream without any disrespect. I'm kind of flogging this point a little bit, aren't I? But yeah, look, I personally really enjoyed what I heard here. I think it was a well-written song that definitely functions as a single. It used Sue's voice well. We didn't hear the other two members of Baby Metal, which usually is something that I always say, I want to hear Baby Metal sound like Baby Metal, like a group. But this song used Sue's voice so well that I'm fine with that. As a duet between two people, it worked really well. It says featuring Baby Metal, which is probably because Tatsuya took the main writing roles and, given his skill as a musician, was probably responsible for even playing quite a lot of this. But I will say that I did like that the way it played off. It didn't feel like Baby Metal's part was just some throwaway thing. It genuinely felt like this was crafted as a song that had a genuine to and fro between Sue's voice and Tatsuya's voice. Another point that I would also point out is when you have a male and female vocalist together, sometimes there can be an awkwardness in the dynamic because, of course, the female voice is in a much higher register, usually singing maybe an octave above. And as a result, you can have that feeling where when it shifts from the male voice to the female voice naturally sounds like a step up, like therefore we're sort of moving up to the main part. So sometimes it can be a bit awkward when you go from the female voice back to the male voice because it sounds like you're stepping down. But I felt like the arrangement beautifully balanced out their voices here so that they moved, as we moved into different parts of the song, you didn't feel like when you went from one vocalist to the other, like there was a feeling that you were maybe losing something. Like, so the female voice being higher register would maybe be more associated with a sense of urgency. This is why, for example, when you have key changes at the end of the song, you might know there's sort of the classic stereotypical key change where the song goes up in the final chorus and it goes up into a higher key change. That's because we normally think of sounds going up as a sense of increased urgency. It's what you'd usually consider to be the crescendo of the song. So this is why I say it can be difficult when you've got a male and female vocalist. When you go from the female vocalist back to the male vocalist, no disrespect to the male vocalist, but it can sound almost like the song is stepping down, not in note, but down as in octave. Here I felt like their voices played against each other beautifully. There was some cool answer bits. So it was that beautiful bit where they just sang together and it really nailed. And then we went into the final chorus. The chorus itself as well, not reinventing the wheel, but it was catchy. I think, to be honest, if I was to describe the songwriting in this, I would say that as much as I keep on banging on about it being very mainstream, very much kind of like the chord structure, everything about it is very familiar to anyone who's heard like sort of, Japanese chart music before. I will say I have to give it credit for the fact that it did still feel very fun, very fresh. It never got bogged down with repeating itself too much, and the chorus was catchy. So, and also this is a single. It's got a music video. You've got a high-profile collaboration going on vocally here. Of course, you're going to be putting the let's give it radio-friendly, such an old-fashioned term. Let's give it radio-friendly quality. Mate, that's the foot you're going to put forwards with this. So, I have to say, I really enjoyed this. I thought this was a great way to do a collaboration. There are songs like Leave It All Behind, where Baby Metal did that song with Body Slam and F-Hero, and that was kind of a Thai-Japanese collaboration. There are songs like that where I feel like they bring more things together, and they're more, your collaborations where you get to hear more different genres blurred. And Baby Metal have been involved in collaborations that have been much more genre blurring, which I love for that reason. But what I loved about this is that this was not a genre blur. This was very clearly in one genre, but the genre that this was in is a genre that I don't think we've ever really heard Baby Metal, even if it's just Sue. I don't think this is a genre we've ever really heard Baby Metal appear in. And that for me is exciting. Because, okay, it's not Baby Metal mixing their metal sound with another group's metal sound, but it is a case of Baby Metal going, we're willing to appear on something totally different. I don't consider this song to be metal at all, and I don't consider that to be a negative. I think this is. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this for what it stands for, and I think it's a good, solid hit that will probably get plenty of views and do well in the charts. Again, charts. That's such an old-fashioned thing. No one gives a damn about charts anymore, but you know what I mean. I think this will do very well for everyone involved. So brilliant stuff, Tatsuya Kitano. I'm sorry I pronounced your name wrong for half of this. Baby Metal, I'm so glad to see them collaborating with a Japanese artist and doing something in a genre like this. So great stuff. Hey, who knows? Maybe next we'll get Baby Metal and YOASOBI. And you know what? Maybe I'll check out a little bit more Tatsuya Kitani's music as well. But superb stuff. Anyway, as always, get in the comments. Tell me what you think. And until I hopefully see you very soon in Japan for the next one of these. For now, ciao, ciao.